You've been around some great players in your career. I was just thinking all the way over here, the quarterbacks like Dylan Gabriel and Hendon Hooker, and I'm missing a bunch of them. But what's something that some of the best, maybe quarterbacks, just best players you've been around have in common? What's like one trait that comes to mind?
Yeah, you missed Brock Purdy. Brock
Purdy, yeah. How did I miss that one?
Yeah. And our kid here, Byron Brown, would go
freshman,
into that
right?
same mold. Yeah. You know what? We were talking about this. Me and my wife were talking about this the other day. We were talking about Iowa State and when we got there, flipping that culture, and a young man named David Montgomery who really had started the flip of that, and just you see what he's doing now in Detroit, and like the special dude that kid was, young man now, like it's so fascinating because all those guys you named were not just really good players, but like culture changers, like culture setters, and culture is such an overused word in our profession. But the ability to not just set a standard, but hold the standard. I think a lot of guys can set a standard and say, man, like I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do this better than anybody else. I'm gonna perfect my craft. I think that's really hard to do in this day and age, to hold yourself accountable to the football side of it when there's all these other things going on. But I think the really special elite players were also really special elite leaders, because they were able to hold other people to that standard. So not just...
PrizePicks is my favorite way to get action on sports. And I've tried all the different apps. Daily fantasy, sports betting. PrizePicks is the very best. On PrizePicks, you pick players instead of teams. So if you know how players are going to perform, you can make tons of money on PrizePicks. On PrizePicks, each player has a set stat projection, and you pick more or less on that number. So for example, Steph Curry, more or less than 20 points. If you think he's going to have more, you pick more. If you think he's going to have less, you pick less. And when you're right, it hits. You pair that with a few other players, you can make up to 100x your money. And the best part is, I have a 100% deposit match up to $100 for all of you with code ADAMB or the link in the description. So if you put in $100 on PrizePicks, they will match that $100 for you. So then you get $200 to play with. So use code ADAMB for that 100% deposit match up to $100. Link in the description.
I think the really special elite players were also really special elite leaders, because they were able to hold other people to that standard. So not just man, I'm gonna work really hard. I'm gonna eat right, sleep right, go to class, treat people the right way. Yes, like you need that. Can you make other people do that with you? And I think that's what separates the really good players, or even elite players in their own right, from the true culture changers. And they don't all have infectious personalities. They, like Brock Purdy is not the most exuberant, outgoing human being ever. He just happened to work harder than everybody else, and he demanded that other people work as hard as him. And when it wasn't right, he held everybody accountable, including the coaches, to it. Hendon Hooker, the same way. Dylan Gabriel, as a young guy, demanded that it was to his standard. Once he was comfortable enough in himself and what he was doing in his process. We talk about Byron Brown is still growing in that regard, coming out of his shell, and it's our job as coaches to empower that. But then there's been a lot of them, but they've all had the ability to demand others live up to their standard. And I think it's really hard. It's a lot on an 18 to 22-year-old, but that's what makes them special. That's why they're different.